What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video. And today we're going to be talking about the latest film coming from Pixar and Disney that I'm pretty late to checking out, and that film is called Elio. Written and directed by Adrian Molina, this film stars people like Yonas, Kibreab, Zoe Saldaña, Brad Garrett, Remy Edgerly, and more. So here we are a few weeks after the release of Elio, which I already mentioned comes from Disney and Pixar. And usually I'm pretty spot on. I jump onto Disney releases pretty quickly. And in full transparency, I actually had an early screening invite to go and check this out at an early press screening, but unfortunately had to miss it due to the fact that I had a sinus infection on my birthday, which ended up leading to me missing the press screening for this film and another film that week. It was not my favorite week and not my favorite birthday by any stretch of the imagination. I ended up having a really swollen eye, looking like Quasimodo, but I knew that I wanted to see this film on the big screen as a longtime fan of Disney animation and specifically Pixar. So without further ado, let's get into what this film is all about, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the film. A quirky, introverted boy named Elio is mistakenly beamed into a galactic council called the Communiverse, where he's believed to be Earth's official ambassador. As he tries to survive the chaos of First Contact, he befriends a kind-hearted alien named Glorden, who happens to be the son of a dangerous warlord known as Lord Grygon, who's plotting his revenge after being rejected by the Communiverse. And with the fate of Earth hanging in the balance, Elio must find courage, connection, and his own voice. I think it goes without saying at this point that when it comes down to Pixar films or even just modern day animation coming from Disney, the animation is going to be stunning, with Pixar of course having a beautiful track record of incredible animation, and this film is no different. Visually, this film pulled me in. If you guys have been following this channel, you'll know that my favorite genres of all time are sci-fi and fantasy. So you add that in with a Pixar animated film, and immediately, at least visually, you're going to have me completely engrossed, and that's exactly what happened with Elio. This is a film that takes place in space and focuses on a young boy named Elio who's just enamored with the idea of space and aliens, and as somebody who has definitely been in those shoes, I really appreciated it. But it was really the emotional core of the film that was really what made me think of Elio as a bigger piece than I expected it to be. This is a film that, if you've seen a lot of the reports on recently, has unfortunately come out to be the least profitable film for Pixar ever. I think it was the worst box office opening ever for the studio, which is heartbreaking. And honestly, I don't blame the film. I really do blame the marketing. This is the kind of film where every time I mentioned to anybody that there was a new Pixar film out that was called Elio, nobody knew what I was talking about. It wasn't even like they were saying like, oh, is that film with the little kid that, you know, goes to space and there's aliens? No, there was always just a flat out, I haven't even heard of that film. And I think that when you look at a lot of modern day films, there's, if anything, sometimes an overabundance of trailers for certain movies where you become so frustrated seeing the same trailer over and over and over again for months before the release. And in the case of Elio, I can genuinely say that I think I saw the trailer for this film in theaters maybe enough times to count on one hand, which is crazy. There are movies that have come out in recent months that, like I just mentioned, I have seen the trailers for countless times. So it blew my mind that this film just kind of got brushed under the rug in terms of marketing. I just feel like even on social media, where I feel like the algorithm always feeds me movie content and movie advertisements, Elio just wasn't really in the mix. So it's really unfortunate because I think Elio deserves more love. I'll be honest in saying that I think Elio leans a lot into some pretty cliche and predictable things that Pixar is known for. But I think, and I've said this many times before, I think that predictable and familiar is okay so long as the execution is strong. And I think in the case of Elio, while I don't think it's groundbreaking, while I don't think that the film takes things to a whole new level for the studio, I do think that it's a visually beautiful film that's vibrant in its colors and clean and crisp in its animations and movements and in its art style, and at the same time has a narrative that's very resonant. This is a film about understanding, and not only understanding within ourselves, but specifically when it comes down to parents. We see in the character of Elio that he's being raised by his aunt after the unfortunate passing of his parents. And she's struggling to connect with him. He's struggling to connect with her. He feels alone. And ultimately, through this journey, he starts to recognize that she too feels alone. And it's in that understanding of the parent, of the guardian, that Elio is able to kind of come into himself throughout the course of the film and recognize that he has more at home than he was giving himself credit for, or that he was giving his aunt credit for. Similarly, he makes friends with a cute, kind-hearted alien in the film that's known as Glorden, who I thought was the cutest part of the film. When I first saw a lot of the marketing, I thought Glorden was going to be like a dog type of character, something that was a little bit more silly, but while the character is very silly and very cute, he actually was an actual full-fledged character. And I found the relationship between Elio and Glorden to be really, really charming, really endearing. And what we get to know about the character of Glorden is that his dad is the big bad, who is the character of Grigon. And he doesn't want to be like his dad. In their culture, in their lifestyle, there's a tradition to be big, tough, and strong, get in these big armored suits and be these badass characters. And he just doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to be a war machine. He doesn't want to be a warlord like his father. And even his father has to come to terms at times with what his son is. And so I think this is a film that's got a lot to say about understanding. Understanding for parents that your kids aren't always going to want to follow in your footsteps or follow the path that you've laid out for them. And similarly for the kids, you sometimes have a specific vision of who your parents are because of how they treated you, or maybe how they structured some sort of disciplinary action, or their path, or their expectations of you. And while I do think that there are some, unfortunate, real toxic situations in a lot of the world that have to deal with this parent-child dynamic, I think a lot of times it comes down to understanding where the other person's coming from. And more often than not, that misunderstanding or that inability or care to understand with one another and to sympathize, a lot of times is what ends up creating that disconnect. And I think that this film tackled that really, really well. I enjoyed the interesting dynamics between Elio and his aunt, though it is a little undercooked at times. I think that the emotional beats work, and there are moments in this film, specifically near the end, that actually tugged on the heartstrings and made me feel emotional. I could feel those classic Pixar tears starting to well up a little bit, which is where I knew that Elio was working for me. And you have a similar kind of storyline that plays out with these two aliens, his father and his, very cute son. I really enjoyed Glorden and Grigon. I really enjoy Zoe Saldaña as the aunt in here as well. And it's also nice as a Hispanic to have a film that focuses on Hispanic characters as well. I thought that was really cool as well. And just overall, I found Elio to be a cute, fun time. Nothing that is blowing me away. Nothing that I think is going to be, a Toy Story or an Incredibles or, an Inside Out down the line. But a film that I think is just easily being overlooked. A film that I think many are kind of shrugging off. A film that is unfortunately kind of the butt of the joke right now for Pixar. And after having seen it, I'm just like, this is a cute, fun time. I think there's some nice messages there for kids. Again, nothing groundbreaking narratively, but certainly a film that's worth your time. And I think if you're looking for something to just tug on the heartstrings, even if it does feel a little familiar, formulaic, and predictable, but has enough unique identity in its visual style and the fact that it takes you to this other world in space and has all these fun creature designs and aliens throughout the course of the film, and has a nice self-exploration kind of narrative at the center of a film that can be enjoyed by both adults and kids, with a really great musical score as well that I thought at times felt very John Williams-esque, then I think you can have a really good time with Elio. This is the kind of film that I totally recommend going to see in theaters with the family if you can, or going to catch it by yourself before it leaves theaters. But if you end up watching it down the line on streaming, I think it's certainly a film that's going to be really tantalizing to many, visually at least, and narratively. I think it's something that a lot of people are going to be able to resonate with, especially if you had something in your life where you feel like you maybe had moments or portions of your life where you disconnected from your family, oftentimes because of misunderstanding. While I don't think everybody's going to be able to relate to the story here, because I do think some dynamics in the household can be a little more toxic than are displayed here, I ultimately think that the film has something nice to say for parents, for kids, and just for people in general. And I ultimately walked away from Elio with a positive takeaway, having enjoyed my time. And it's the kind of film that, again, it's no Toy Story, but I can see myself revisiting this down the line and enjoying it a little bit more than I did this time. So that's going to be my thoughts on Elio, and I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Have you gotten a chance to check this film out already? What are your thoughts? And if you haven't seen it, or you may be planning on checking it out at some point, whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.